Paris in late spring shimmered like a dream. Warm golden light washed over Haussmann boulevards, and the faint scent of lilacs drifted through the open windows of the Hotel de Ville district. On the 7th floor of the exclusive Hotel de Toile, two newlyweds from Tokyo seemed to embody perfection. Guests had whispered about them at breakfast. A handsome entrepreneur and his stunning, soft-spoken bride on what should have been the happiest trip of their lives. That evening, the groom, Ryo Tanaka, 32, known for his poised demeanor and quiet wealth, had reserved a riverside table at a Michelin-starred restaurant overlooking the Seine. His bride, Eiko Sato, 27, appeared radiant in a pearl-white dress and a slim diamond necklace that glimmered with each flicker of candlelight. To onlookers, they were the portrait of bliss. But beneath the laughter and clinking glasses, tension had been building for days. Paris was supposed to be a fresh chapter after the whirlwind Tokyo wedding. Champagne towers, designer gowns, and a guest list that had included politicians and fashion executives. Yet small cracks had begun to show even before their flight departed Narita Airport. Fleeting glances at Eiko's phone, hushed calls taken in hallways, and an envelope Ryo had found accidentally in her luggage. The restaurant's sommelier poured a final glass of Bordeaux as Eiko excused herself for the powder room. She returned with her smile carefully reset, but Ryo noticed her hand trembling slightly as she picked up her fork. By 10:15 p.m., the couple walked back toward the hotel. CCTV footage later captured them stepping off the Pont Neuf bridge, their faces tense, words exchanged in hurried whispers. A passing Parisian cyclist later told investigators he heard raised voices, maybe an argument, but thought nothing of it. Inside room 702, the tension cracked wide open. According to Ryo's statement, an accidental discovery on his phone minutes earlier had confirmed his worst suspicions. The envelope contained documents linking Eiko to a years-old Tokyo scandal, a scandal she had sworn she'd never been involved in. He confronted her quietly at first, then pressed harder. She denied it, then faltered, her eyes darting toward her suitcase as if measuring an escape route. Hotel guests in neighboring rooms would later report muffled voices, urgent but not violent. At 10:55 p.m., the hallway camera caught Eiko slipping out alone, wearing a long beige trench coat over her dress, her hair tied back hastily. She carried no purse, no phone, and most chillingly left her passport on the nightstand. The next confirmed sighting came from a boutique security camera 3 blocks away. Eiko crossing a narrow alley lit only by a flickering neon sign. Her face was turned from the lens, but the distinctive diamond necklace gleamed against her collarbone. That was the last trace of her anyone could verify. By 1 a.m., a frantic Ryo appeared at the hotel's front desk, demanding help. He told staff that his wife had gone for a walk to clear her head but hadn't returned. Paris police were called shortly after. Within hours, the story leapt from a missing person alert to international headlines. Tokyo bride vanishes on Paris honeymoon splashed across news feeds in Japan and Europe. Online forums buzzed with speculation. Was this an abduction? A carefully planned disappearance? Or did Ryo know more than he was telling? Detectives arrived before dawn. They searched the hotel room, passport on the nightstand, her phone on the dresser, the trench coat missing from the closet. A single window was open, the curtains swaying gently in the cool night air. The only unusual object on the bedside table, aside from the passport, was a folded note in Eiko's elegant handwriting. It contained just 3 words: "Forgive me, R." Paris, the city of light, was waking to a new day, but for Ryo Tanaka, the darkness had just begun. And for investigators, this was the start of a mystery that would expose secrets stretching far beyond the Seine's quiet waters. Long before Eiko Sato's name flashed across international headlines, she had been a quiet figure in Tokyo's Shibuya district. Born to a family of respected academics, her early life seemed ordinary. School uniforms, piano lessons, Sunday strolls beneath cherry blossoms. But classmates remembered her as polished beyond her years, someone who always seemed to be performing a role rather than simply existing. By 22, Eiko had become a rising star in Tokyo's competitive fashion industry. As a buyer for a luxury brand, She traveled constantly, Paris, Milan, New York, building connections and cultivating a reputation for elegance and discretion. Her colleagues admired her professionalism, but whispered about a faint aura of secrecy. She shared little about her personal life, never introduced boyfriends, and changed apartments more often than most changed hairstyles. One rumor clung to her despite her efforts to outrun it. 2 years earlier, a major Tokyo brand collapsed after an insider leaked sensitive financial data to competitors. The scandal had cost dozens their jobs and triggered a police probe. Eiko's name had surfaced briefly. She had been the assistant to one of the executives under suspicion, but the story faded before anyone could prove her involvement. She denied everything, but in private moments, she became evasive when the topic arose. Ryo Tanaka met her at a charity gala in Ginza. He was an entrepreneur whose tech company had just gone public, and the room buzzed with curiosity when the polished heiress and the self-made millionaire danced together. Their romance progressed quickly. Candlelit dinners in Omotesando, ski trips to Hokkaido, late-night messages that stretched until sunrise. Friends described them as magnetic, but noted how fiercely Eiko guarded her independence. When Ryo proposed under a canopy of wisteria in Kyoto, she accepted with tears. But even then, a flicker of unease crossed her face, as though some unseen thread might unravel. The wedding itself was a spectacle. Designer gowns flown in from Milan, an orchestra flown in from Vienna, and a guest list that could have filled the society pages for weeks. Yet amid the champagne toasts, Eiko's closest friend, Haruka, noticed her disappearing twice to take hushed phone calls. In the weeks before Paris, subtle anomalies emerged. Eiko abruptly sold a small Tokyo apartment she'd kept secret from Ryo. She withdrew a large sum of cash, telling her bank she was restructuring investments. She seemed distracted, once nearly missing her flight to meet Ryo in Osaka. Haruka would later tell investigators that Eiko confided a fear she could not name. "It's something from my past," she whispered over tea one afternoon, "something I thought I'd left behind." She wouldn't elaborate, only added, "If anything ever happens to me, don't believe the first story you hear." When Eiko boarded the plane to Paris, she appeared serene to onlookers. In reality, her heart raced. In her carry-on bag, she kept not just her wedding gown's delicate lace gloves, but also a sealed envelope labeled with a single kanji character. One Ryo would discover in the hotel days later. In Paris, during their first days together, small frictions surfaced. Eiko excused herself for long walks alone, claimed she felt jet-lagged when Ryo suggested sightseeing and avoided tourist photos. On the third evening, a stranger lingered outside their hotel lobby. Staff recalled a tall man in a dark coat who seemed to watch Eiko as she crossed the marble foyer. When Ryo asked about him, she brushed it off. Just another guest. By the night she vanished, Eiko had been living a double life, a devoted bride on the surface and a woman quietly haunted by unfinished business. Whether that unfinished business involved a corporate scandal, a dangerous acquaintance from Tokyo, or something even darker remained to be seen. But one thing was clear. Eiko Sato had secrets powerful enough to drive her from the glittering lights of Paris into the unknown. Ryo Tanaka had spent most of his adult life building a reputation for control. In Tokyo's demanding tech industry, he was the man who stayed calm when investors panicked, who found solutions when others quit. Yet, as he sipped espresso on the balcony of the Hotel de Toile 3 days into their Paris honeymoon, an unease he couldn't shake gnawed at him. At first, he dismissed it as post-wedding exhaustion or jet lag, but small inconsistencies piled up. Eiko flinched when a text alert chimed on his phone, as if the sound triggered memories. She insisted on checking their passports 3 times in one afternoon, then left hers unattended on the nightstand the next morning, a habit completely unlike her. Ryo replayed their whirlwind romance in his mind, searching for moments he might have overlooked. He remembered the gala in Ginza where they met, the sweep of her silk gown, the shy smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. He'd been captivated, certain she was the missing piece of his carefully ordered life. Over sushi in Ibisu, she'd laughed easily but never volunteered details about her family beyond polite generalities. His friends had teased him for rushing. "She's gorgeous, but do you know her?" he brushed off their concern, believing love could outrun any unknowns. On their wedding night in Kyoto, when lanterns floated on the Kamo River, she'd seemed present and devoted. But now, in Paris, Ryo found himself studying her every glance. The confrontation that evening began quietly. While Eiko showered, Ryo idly sorted through their luggage, looking for a travel adapter. That's when he noticed the envelope wedged behind her dresses, the same kanji-marked folder he'd glimpsed weeks earlier. Inside were photocopied financial statements and an old photograph. Eiko with a man Ryo didn't recognize, standing in front of a Tokyo corporate logo that had made headlines during the Insider Leak scandal. A second document listed an offshore account under a name he knew she'd never mentioned. When Eiko emerged in a cream silk robe, he was sitting stiffly on the edge of the bed, the papers in his hands. "Where did you get these?" His voice was measured but cold. Her gaze flickered first to the papers, then to the door. "That's old, it's not what you think." "You told me the rumors weren't true," he said, "that you had nothing to do with that leak." She sat beside him, clasping her hands. "I didn't betray anyone, Ryo, but I was close to someone who did. I protected him once, and now—" She stopped, biting her lip. "If you knew everything, you might not have married me." The room fell silent except for the faint hum of Parisian traffic outside. Ryo felt the floor tilt under him. Trust, the foundation of their marriage, had splintered in seconds. They went to dinner anyway, a pretense of normalcy neither believed. Over wine, Ryo watched her hands tremble as she lifted her glass. He thought of the stranger in the dark coat outside their hotel earlier, of the rumors he'd ignored, and of the subtle way Eiko sometimes checked over her shoulder. Back in their room, his anger mingled with dread. "Who else knows you're here?" he pressed. "Is someone following you?" She shook her head but avoided his eyes. "I thought Paris would be far enough. I thought we could start over." Her words, "far enough," sent a chill through him. What exactly were they trying to outrun? Moments later, she slipped on her trench coat, saying she needed air. He considered stopping her but hesitated, thinking space might cool their tempers. When the door clicked shut, he told himself she'd return within minutes. Instead, hours later, the Paris police would record his panicked call, his voice cracking for the first time in years of public composure. The controlled entrepreneur was gone. In his place was a husband whose new life had shattered before it had truly begun. The streets of Paris glimmered under scattered rain as Eiko Sato stepped out of the Hotel de Toile. A faint drizzle blurred the neon reflections on the cobblestones, muffling the sound of her heels. To the security camera above the revolving door, she looked like any other late-night wanderer in a trench coat. But the hurried way she crossed the street, glancing over her shoulder, hinted at panic. Inside, Ryo Tanaka paced their suite, the discarded documents still spread across the bed. He tried to tell himself she simply needed time to cool off. Yet the hours stretched thin. 11:30 p.m., midnight. The hotel's antique clock chimed, a sound that would later echo in his memory like a warning bell. At 12:15 a.m., the night clerk remembered seeing Eiko's reflection in a shop window near Rue Saint-Honoré. Her trench coat pulled tight, her hair damp with mist. Minutes later, a boutique CCTV captured her turning into a narrow alley where a flickering sign barely lit the path. There would be no confirmed sightings of her after that frame. Back at the hotel, Ryo's unease sharpened into fear. He tried calling her phone, but it rang on the dresser. He knocked on nearby doors, asking if anyone had seen her. One guest recalled hearing footsteps on the stairs, not the elevator, an odd choice for someone heading out into the night. At 1:00 a.m., Ryo descended to the front desk. "My wife is missing," he told the clerk, his voice breaking. The clerk hesitated, perhaps assuming a newlywed argument, but called the police. By 2:00 a.m., 2 Paris officers arrived, their notebooks out, their expressions politely skeptical. Disappearances at night, especially involving travelers, often resolved within hours. Still, they canvassed the area, cafes, alleys, and even the banks of the Seine. A taxi driver thought he saw a woman matching Aiko's description enter a black sedan near Place Vendôme, but no plate was recorded. As dawn approached, the Seine flowed silently past bridges dotted with streetlights. Police dogs traced her scent to the corner of Rue des Capucines, then lost the trail. A damp silk scarf lay nearby, later confirmed to be hers. By morning, the honeymoon suite was a crime scene. Investigators photographed the open window, the untouched passport, and the note reading, "Forgive me." Our French detectives questioned Rio for hours. Had there been an argument? Did he know of anyone who might want to harm her? His answers, halting but firm, did little to dispel suspicion. International media caught the story by mid-morning. Headlines buzzed, "Tokyo bride vanishes in Paris." The image of Aiko, smiling in her wedding gown just a week earlier, looped across television screens. In Tokyo, friends and colleagues watched in disbelief. Haruka, her closest confidant, broke down on live news. She was scared of something, she didn't say what. Theories sprouted online. Some claimed she'd staged her disappearance to escape a criminal past. Others suspected abduction, a jealous ex, a corporate whistleblower seeking revenge, or even organized crime linked to the Tokyo scandal. A few believed she had been killed and that Ryo's calm exterior masked a darker truth. By the end of that day, the Paris police had pulled surveillance footage from dozens of cameras, questioned hotel staff, and checked outbound trains and flights. But Eiko Sato had vanished as if swallowed by the city of light's shadows, leaving behind a trail of questions and a husband staring out over the Seine, replaying every moment that might have led her into the night. By sunrise on the second day, Rue Saint-Honoré was lined with police tape and reporters. Paris detectives, accustomed to high-profile disappearances, approached Eiko Sato's case with cautious precision. The first step was to rule out the obvious: spontaneous flight, accident, or foul play close to home. Ryo Tanaka became their first point of scrutiny. At 9:00 a.m., he was escorted to the first arrondissement police station for formal questioning. Detectives noted his exhausted face, unshaven jaw, and trembling hands, details that would later feed both sympathetic coverage and speculation. He recounted their argument: the discovery of old documents, Eiko's denial, and her abrupt exit. "Did you follow her?" the lead detective asked. "No," Ryo admitted. "I thought she would come back." His passport was seized temporarily, his statements compared to timestamps on hotel CCTV and phone records. Forensics swabbed the hotel room. Fingerprints, fibers, and a single damp footprint near the window that did not match Ryo's shoes. Detectives scoured the area. The boutique's CCTV footage, Eiko stepping into the alley, was enhanced and slowed. Behind her, a blurred figure appeared, tall, male, wearing a dark coat. The image was too grainy for identification. By afternoon, they traced a black sedan seen leaving Place Vendôme at 12:22 a.m. The car was registered to a local chauffeur service, but the driver claimed he had no recollection of picking up anyone matching Eiko's description. GPS logs suggested the vehicle made an unscheduled stop near Gare de Lyon before going dark for 40 minutes, long enough for someone to vanish into the maze of outbound trains. Investigators checked outbound transport hubs. No tickets or boarding passes under Eiko's name turned up, but a woman using a false Japanese passport boarded a train to Marseille at 5:10 a.m. Her resemblance to Eiko was noted but unconfirmed. News outlets in Japan dug into her background. The fashion industry scandal resurfaced. Encrypted emails had been leaked to competitors, costing millions. While Eiko was never formally accused, her proximity to one of the disgraced executives was well known. An investigative journalist unearthed a 3-year-old photo. Eiko with that same executive, the man in Ryo's mysterious photograph, at a Tokyo gala. Haruka, her friend, spoke to reporters again. "She told me someone was watching her. She was terrified before Paris." Haruka handed over a series of text messages Eiko had sent the week before. "If anything happens, remember I tried to protect him." French and Japanese media spun competing theories. Abduction for revenge. The disgraced executive or his associates might have tracked her down to silence her. Staged disappearance. Aiko could have faked her vanishing to escape legal consequences or debt. Domestic violence. Some tabloids suggested Ryo himself might have harmed her and staged the scene. Ryo hired a French attorney and a private investigator determined to clear his name. He even appeared on a Japanese television program via satellite, tearfully pleading for information. "If anyone has seen Aiko, please, she's my wife. She's my life." 2 days later, a small breakthrough. A Paris street artist, reviewing photos he'd taken that night for reference, found Aiko in the background of one image, walking quickly, head down, next to the man in the dark coat. The time stamp, 12:07 a.m. near Rue des Petits Champs, slightly off the known timeline. Investigators compared the blurry man to old images from the Tokyo scandal. The resemblance was unsettling. At the same time, bank records revealed that 3 days before the wedding, someone had accessed a dormant offshore account connected to the leaked data scandal, transferring funds to a European branch. The login matched credentials traced to a device once registered to Aiko. Detectives theorized she may have been coerced or lured into a meeting that night under the pretext of resolving unfinished business. The possibility that she willingly went with someone to protect Ryo, or herself, hung heavy over the case. Social media fractured into camps. Find Aiko trended globally, with strangers sharing tips and theories, while skeptics dissected Ryo's every public gesture. Some framed Aiko as a cunning fraudster, others painted her as a victim of powerful men. As the investigation deepened, police quietly requested cooperation from Japanese authorities. Old files from the scandal hinted that a second whistleblower, never identified, had vanished in 2022 under similar mysterious circumstances. Ryo, staying in Paris under police advisement, began retracing their steps. Cafes they visited, boutiques she admired, even the bridge where they'd once shared champagne under the stars. Each familiar place now felt haunted. In his pocket, he kept the note she'd left, "Forgive me, R," folded and refolded until the edges frayed. By the end of the first week, the case had grown far beyond a missing bride. It was now an international mystery entangled with corporate secrets, old betrayals, and the shadowy world of those who profit from information leaks. And through it all, the City of Light kept its secrets, offering only fragments, a grainy image, a damp scarf, and questions with no answers. Parisian detectives widened their net, but it was a digital forensics breakthrough that finally shifted the case. While combing through Aiko's encrypted cloud accounts, specialists unearthed fragments of correspondence tied to the Tokyo data leak scandal. Among the recovered files was a series of drafts titled The Phoenix Report, a damning exposé of corporate espionage implicating powerful figures in both Tokyo and Dubai. Investigators learned that Aiko had arranged a discreet meeting in Paris with a former colleague turned whistleblower, Kenji Morita. Kenji had disappeared from Tokyo 3 years ago after being threatened over his role in exposing the leaks. A newly decrypted email showed she'd agreed to hand him crucial evidence during the honeymoon, evidence she believed would finally clear her name and protect Ryo from becoming collateral damage. Kenji, tracked down in Marseille, was brought to Paris. In a guarded interview, he admitted, she was terrified. She thought someone was following her even in Tokyo. She said this was her last chance to set things right. He claimed they were supposed to meet at 12:15 a.m. near Place Vendôme, the exact time she was last seen alive, but Kenji insisted she never arrived. Detectives also unearthed encrypted payments from an offshore account connected to a Dubai-based conglomerate. Financial analysts suggested hush money had been paid to suppress the Phoenix report years ago. The discovery widened the scope. This was no longer a simple missing persons case. It was entangled with international business interests that had the resources to make people disappear. The man in the dark coat, previously a shadow in blurry CCTV footage, was finally identified through facial recognition as Farid Al-Mansur, a private security contractor known for operating in the gray zones of corporate enforcement. Al Mansour had worked for clients implicated in the Phoenix leaks. His sudden arrival in Paris, booked under an alias, added a sinister dimension. Ryo, once the golden boy of a Tokyo investment firm, now found himself a suspect, a widower-in-waiting, and an unwilling player in a conspiracy he barely understood. He confronted Kenji after the interview. "You knew she was in danger, and you let her walk into it." Kenji's face hardened. "She insisted she didn't want you involved." The exchange was caught by a news crew outside the station and broadcast internationally, igniting speculation that Ryo might take matters into his own hands. That night, a hotel maid came forward with something she'd hesitated to report: a tiny USB drive discovered beneath a wardrobe panel in the couple's suite. Forensic analysis revealed part of the Phoenix report: spreadsheets detailing illicit financial transfers, emails hinting at bribery schemes, and one chilling line in Aiko's notes: "If they find me first, Ryo must never know the truth about Kyoto." The word Kyoto puzzled investigators. Further digging uncovered an unsolved disappearance in Kyoto 2 years earlier, a junior executive from the same corporation. His last known contact had been with Aiko. Detective Claire Dubois, leading the case, realized the danger extended beyond Aiko. She persuaded Interpol to intervene quietly, fearing leaks to the press could provoke whoever was hunting Aiko. She also arranged for Ryo to meet with a covert Interpol agent who specialized in corporate crimes. The agent warned him, "These people erase problems. If Aiko still has what they want, she's bargaining for her life." Ryo's heartbreak hardened into resolve. "Then I'll find her first." Theories once dismissed now felt plausible. Perhaps Aiko had staged her disappearance to draw the hunters away from Ryo, or perhaps she had been abducted and forced to trade the report for her life. Public sentiment shifted again. #Justice for Aiko trended alongside corporate cover-up. Online sleuths traced Farid Al-Mansour's movements across Europe, posting maps and theories that embarrassed French authorities. An informant within a Marseille dockyard contacted police. A woman matching Aiko's description had been seen boarding a private yacht 3 nights after her disappearance, escorted by 2 men. The yacht's registry traced back to a shell company tied to the Dubai conglomerate. By the time authorities searched nearby ports, the vessel had vanished into the Mediterranean. Standing on the Pont Alexander III, Ryo clutched the frayed note Aiko had left. The city lights blurred through his tears. He replayed every conversation, every glance from their wedding night, moments that now seemed laced with hidden meaning. She had never stopped protecting him, even when it meant vanishing into the shadows of an international conspiracy. Detective Dubois joined him on the bridge. "If she's alive," she said, "she's playing a dangerous game, but a woman willing to sacrifice everything to protect you doesn't give up easily." The Mediterranean wind whipped against the deck of a Marseille ferry as Ryo Tanaka stared out at the dark horizon. He'd abandoned the polite, rule-following groom the world had seen on Japanese television. What remained was a man willing to chase shadows across continents. Interpol's confidential lead about the yacht gave him a starting point. Detective Dubois warned him against acting alone. These are not people you can outwit with good intentions. But Ryo's patience had frayed. Using savings wired from a trusted friend in Tokyo, he bribed a dockworker for access to maritime tracking data. One vessel, Le Dauphin Noir, matched the yacht's description but had changed its registry to a Panamanian shell company and turned off its transponder near Corsica. Kenji Morita, guilt heavy on his conscience, reappeared with a plan. "I know someone in Naples who can find a ship that wants to stay invisible," he said. Together they boarded a train to Italy, moving under assumed names to avoid alerting those already watching them. In Naples, a retired smuggler named Lucia Ferraro introduced them to the dangerous underworld of European shipping routes. Over plates of steaming pasta in a dim trattoria, she traced the likely path on a crumpled map. "They'll go east," she predicted. "Cyprus or Lebanon. They'll avoid Greece. Too many coast guards." Ryo asked if Aiko could still be alive. Lucia's answer was blunt. "If they wanted her dead, you'd have found her body. Alive means leverage. Meanwhile, Detective Dubois continued her own quiet investigation. Portions of the Phoenix report were leaked anonymously to a London journalist, forcing the conglomerate's executives into damage control mode. The leak also confirmed that Farid Al-Mansur had previously overseen disappearances of whistleblowers. International media now framed Aiko as a heroic insider rather than a fugitive fraudster, and public pressure mounted for answers. In Naples' shadowy port district, Kenji spotted two men tailing them, likely mercenaries hired by the conglomerate. A chase through narrow alleys ended with Kenji throwing their only phone into the bay to prevent tracking. They slipped aboard a freighter bound for Limassol under the cover of night, hiding among shipping containers as the vessel pulled away. Ryo, wedged between crates of machinery, whispered a silent vow. "Hold on, Aiko, I'm coming." In Cyprus, Ryo found a bartender who remembered a terrified Japanese woman accompanied by two men speaking Arabic and French. She had slipped him a napkin with two words, "Kyoto Files." The bartender had dismissed it as nonsense, until now. He handed the napkin to Ryo, who recognized the phrase from the USB drive. Kenji deduced that the files Aiko still possessed were more damaging than anything leaked so far, likely evidence of crimes involving the conglomerate's Kyoto branch. "If she can trade them, she has a bargaining chip," he said. They learned Le Dauphin Noir had departed Limassol for Beirut using a falsified manifest, but whispers in the port suggested a mid-sea transfer to another vessel to obscure the trail. The clock was ticking. Exhausted, Ryo wrestled with doubt. What if she had staged all of this, not to protect him, but to escape with the fortune from the offshore account? He replayed her laughter on their wedding day, the warmth in her eyes, and her whispered promise under the cherry blossoms in Tokyo. "I'll always find my way back to you." Doubt faded. He would believe in her until proof said otherwise. Dubois, monitoring from Paris, arranged a covert link with an Interpol operative in Beirut named Omar Haddad. Omar warned them, "The group you're chasing has influence here. One wrong move and you'll vanish like her." Still, he offered to guide them through Beirut's maze of contacts, on one condition. If they found Aiko, they'd let Interpol extract her safely rather than take reckless risks. Ryo agreed outwardly. Inside, he knew he'd do whatever it took, even if it meant breaking the deal. Late that night in a smoky cafe near the Beirut port, Omar handed Ryo a grainy satellite image. A smaller yacht, the Seraphine, had departed a covert marina 2 days earlier, likely carrying Aiko. Its heading, toward international waters near Crete. Ryo felt a surge of desperate hope. The world that had once seemed romantic, honeymoons in Paris, moonlit bridges, had transformed into a labyrinth of danger. But somewhere on those dark waters, Aiko was alive, and her secret past was no longer hers alone. It threatened powerful men across continents. Standing on the pier, the Mediterranean breeze carried the faint echo of distant waves. Ryo's resolve crystallized. The next step would not be cautious or calculated. It would be a leap into the unknown, toward the woman he loved, and into a battle far greater than either of them had imagined. The Aegean Sea stretched endlessly, its blue surface calm yet concealing danger. On board a rented speedboat, Ryo Tanaka clutched the napkin with Kyoto Files scrawled across it, a lifeline and a curse. Kenji Morita adjusted the radio scanner, trying to catch fragments of chatter from the Seraphine, the yacht rumored to carry Aiko. Satellite updates from Omar Haddad placed the vessel near Crete. The two men navigated rough waves through the night, aided by Lucia Ferrero's smuggling contacts, who had quietly tipped them off to a shipping lane seldom patrolled by authorities. Every engine hum and distant light set Ryo's nerves on edge. As dawn broke, the shadow of the Seraphine appeared on the horizon, a sleek yacht gliding like a predator. Through binoculars, Ryo glimpsed a small figure on deck, dark hair whipping in the wind. His heart surged. Aiko. Kenji raised a flare gun. "If we get close, they'll open fire," he warned. "They won't risk gunfire if they need her alive," Ryo countered. They angled the speedboat to intercept. A warning shot cracked across the water, a mercenary with an assault rifle on the Seraphine's stern. The message was clear, back off, but Ryo pushed forward, weaving through the yacht's wake. Over the roar of engines, Aiko's voice carried faintly. "Ryo!" She had spotted him. The mercenary grabbed her arm, but she twisted free long enough to toss a waterproof pouch overboard. It landed near Ryo's boat with a splash. Kenji snatched it from the water. It contained a second USB drive. The mercenary yanked her back. Ryo's rage boiled over. He aimed the speedboat directly at the Seraphine's side, creating a diversion. The mercenaries scrambled, buying precious seconds. Kenji fired the flare gun, not at the yacht, but skyward, sending a red streak screaming across the dawn. The distraction worked. Ryo leapt from the speedboat onto the yacht's rail, clinging desperately as the vessel pitched. Two mercenaries rushed him. A brutal struggle ensued, fists, elbows, and the crash of a broken bottle. Kenji rammed the speedboat alongside, creating chaos as metal scraped metal. Aiko seized the moment, slamming a fire extinguisher into her captor's back. The blast of white foam obscured the deck. Ryo grabbed her hand, but another mercenary lunged. Aiko bit his arm, breaking free, and the pair vaulted back onto the speedboat as Kenji gunned the engine. Bullets sparked on the water's surface as they sped away, the yacht shrinking behind them. The Seraphine pursued, but smoke began pouring from its stern. Lucia's contact had sabotaged the yacht's engine days earlier, anticipating this confrontation. Ryo's boat darted between cargo vessels, weaving through the maze of the shipping lane until the pursuing yacht faltered and disappeared from sight. On deck, Aiko collapsed into Ryo's arms, trembling but alive. Salt spray mingled with her tears. "I didn't know if I'd ever see you again," she whispered. "I'll never stop looking," he replied, voice cracking. They opened the waterproof pouch. Inside, the complete Kyoto files, emails, transaction records, and video evidence implicating several conglomerate executives in crimes ranging from insider trading to orchestrated disappearances. Among them was proof linking Farid Al-Mansur to multiple covert operations, including the elimination of other whistleblowers. Kenji's hands shook. "This will bring them down if we survive long enough to deliver it." Suddenly, a helicopter appeared on the horizon, Interpol markings flashing in the sunlight. Detective Dubois' voice crackled through the radio. "Hold your position. We've tracked you through the flare." Two patrol boats closed in, not to arrest them, but to escort them to safety. Dubois had defied orders, leaking the location to her most trusted team before the conglomerate could intercept. Ryo held Aiko's face in his hands. The nightmare of Paris, the yacht, the sleepless nights on foreign shores, all of it now felt like the prelude to a larger war. "It's not over," Aiko said softly. "They'll hunt us for this." "Then we fight," Ryo replied. By the time they reached a secure Interpol facility in Crete, #Kyoto Files was trending globally. Journalists clamored for statements, politicians demanded inquiries, and the powerful men behind the conglomerate scrambled to contain the fallout. The honeymoon that began under the Eiffel Tower had become an international incident. As the sun dipped below the Aegean, Ryo and Aiko stood together on a quiet balcony. For the first time in days, they could breathe. Yet even in that fragile moment of relief, the sea whispered a warning. Secrets this dangerous rarely stay buried, and their enemies were far from defeated.